Old boats don't usually get better. Engines wear out, fuel tanks corrode, wiring picks up 3 owners' worth of bad decisions, decks go soft underfoot, electronics turn into antiques before the paint even fades. Eventually, a boat crosses a line where fixing one problem just introduces you to the next one waiting behind it. So why do experienced owners keep spending real money rebuilding hulls that are 30, 40, even 60 years old? Because once in a while, age does something useful. It strips away everything that wasn't worth keeping, and it leaves behind exactly what was. Before we get into it, if you had to rebuild one old offshore fishing boat with your own money, which hull would you start with? Put that in the comments now, before you see the list. Because by the time we reach number 1, almost everything bolted, wired, or plumbed into these boats can be newer than the hull carrying it. Number 6. Aquasport 22.2. Start taking apart a 40-year-old Aquasport 22.2, and you learn something most new boat buyers never have to think about. Every old hull actually has 2 histories. There's the boat the factory built, and there's everything every owner did to it afterward. Sometimes for the better, sometimes not. Pull the deck on a tired 22.2, and you might find an aging fuel tank, waterlogged flotation foam, a soft transom, old wiring, patched fiberglass, and signs that somebody already rebuilt part of this boat once before. Maybe more than once. That sounds like a reason to walk away. It's actually why the Aquasport developed one of the strongest restoration cultures among old center consoles. Most owners aren't trying to recreate the boat Aquasport delivered in the 1970s. They're stripping away decades of compromises and rebuilding the hull around how they fish today. New transom, new tank, reworked storage, more live-well space, modern steering, modern electronics, maybe a closed stern and a bracket, and, almost always, a modern 4-stroke. But here's where a real restoration separates itself from someone simply bolting new gear onto an old hull. A heavier modern outboard doesn't just add horsepower. Hang that engine farther aft on a bracket, and you've shifted leverage on the transom. You've moved weight backward. You've changed how the boat sits at rest. That's why owners who do this well treat fuel tank position, console placement, engine weight, and stern balance as one connected system, not 4 separate upgrades. They're not just restoring the boat, they're rebalancing it, which is really the whole Aquasport story. The best version of an old boat isn't always the most original one. Originality doesn't count for much when the original tank is leaking and the original transom is wet. What matters is whether the platform underneath all of it still deserves another life. One warning before you go looking for one. Not every 22.2 is identical, and not every one is a flatback. Different generations and bottom configurations matter. And while these boats have deep roots in Florida fishing, nobody's claiming every version was built to run 50 miles offshore in ugly weather. That's not why it's on this list. It's here because few old fishing boats demonstrate the rebuild philosophy as clearly. Strip away the compromises. Keep the shape that still works. The Parker 2520 gets to the same place from the opposite direction. It was never asking to become something new. It just needed to keep doing the job it was already good at. Number 5. Parker 2520. Very few people buy a Parker 2520 to make a fashion statement. That's probably one reason the old ones still make so much sense today. Pilot house, practical cockpit, straightforward systems, real weather protection, and a layout that does essentially the same job whether the electronics were installed in 2002 or yesterday afternoon. The technology gets old. The job it's doing doesn't. That's the math some Parker owners run when they look at the price of a brand new boat versus fixing up an older 2520. If the hull still works, the pilot house still works, and the cockpit still does exactly what you need, why replace the entire boat because the engine, steering, fuel tank, and electronics got old? Replace the systems, keep the boat. But there's something worth knowing before you go shopping for one. Not every Parker 2520 has the same bottom. Depending on year and version, you'll find different hull configurations. There are shallower dead rise boats, and there are deeper V versions around 21 degrees. And that changes the boat. Shallower hulls tend to be more efficient and more stable at rest. Deeper V versions give some of that up in exchange for better manners when the water turns rough. Neither is automatically the right answer. It depends on what you actually need the boat to do. which means a listing that just says Parker 2520 isn't telling you enough. You want the year, the hull version, the dead rise, the engine setup, and, just as important, what's already been fixed. Fuel tanks deserve real attention. So does deck core around poorly sealed holes and hardware. Then there's scuppers, pumps, steering, old electronics, and whatever electrical work accumulated behind the helm over 20 or 30 years. Age has given these boats one big advantage, though. Owners have been documenting those problems for years. Tank replacements, repowers, hydraulic steering conversions, deck repairs, propeller choices, engine height. On some old hulls, every repair feels like archaeology. You're guessing at what a stranger did decades ago and why. A Parker comes with a much deeper knowledge base behind it. And once an older 2520 gets a known good fuel system, reliable modern power, hydraulic steering, and current electronics, you haven't changed why somebody wanted the boat in the first place. You've just removed the reasons they might have sold it. If you like this kind of detail, the stuff people usually find out after the check clears, subscribe to BoatVerdict. A Parker that goes through this process usually comes out the other side still looking and behaving like a Parker. Number 4. Boston Whaler Outrage 22. Park two classic Outrage 22s next to each other, and you might assume they were built for two different jobs entirely. One still wears a traditional center console layout. The other has serious weather protection, radar, a redesigned bait system, modern electronics, and a stern configuration that barely resembles what left the factory. Same hull, almost nothing else in common. That's what makes the Outrage interesting. It became a platform, and platforms follow their owners wherever they want to go. But to understand why these boats age well, you have to get past the obvious whaler talking point. Yes, the brand built one of the strongest safety reputations in boating. No, that doesn't make a 40-year-old whaler indestructible. Fuel tanks age, wiring ages, hardware wears out. Previous modifications can range from clever to genuinely bad. And because whalers' foam-filled construction is such a central part of the boat, knowledgeable owners take water intrusion seriously. A hole in the fiberglass isn't just cosmetic. If water's been finding its way into places nobody can see, the stern deserves the same scrutiny. A conventional transom, a factory whaler drive, and an aftermarket bracket are three different setups. They are not variations on one. A whaler drive adds buoyancy. A bracket moves engine weight farther aft, and a modern four-stroke can weigh considerably more than whatever engine originally hung there. So bolting on more horsepower doesn't automatically make the boat better. Now you're thinking about trim, stern draft, drainage, weight distribution, and how the boat actually sits once it's loaded with fuel, gear, bait, and people. The rebuilds that hold up are the ones that respect the hull instead of trying to overpower it. That's why the Outrage has lasted this long. Some owners chase weather protection. Some build around bait capacity and offshore range. Others keep it simple. Same platform, completely different mission. Age hasn't trapped the Outrage in the past. It's given owners decades to figure out how to make the hull work in Fisheries Boston Whaler, never designed around when the boat was new. Number 3. Classic Mako 25. We're talking specifically about the original Mako 25 from the late 1970s and early 1980s. Not the later 254, not the 251. Related boats, not identical ones. The later versions changed the running surface and how the boat carried itself. They ran drier. They added lift. They fixed some of the things owners complained about on the earlier 25. And yet longtime Mako owners still go looking for the older hull specifically. Why chase a boat that's wetter than the one that replaced it? Because some owners simply prefer how the old hull behaves in a head sea. That's the contradiction sitting at the center of this whole entry. The later boat fixed real weaknesses. And some experienced owners still want the earlier one anyway. To be clear, nobody's rebuilding one of these because it was cheap. They're deliberately seeking out a specific handling characteristic, and they're buying 40 years of problems along with it. Old Mako owners talk about the same issues over and over. Transoms, fuel tanks, soft decks, aging wiring, old fiberglass repairs. Plenty of these hulls got fished hard for decades. A shiny classic Mako with a brand new engine can still be a financial trap if the structural work underneath hasn't been done. which is really the lesson buried in this whole list. On a 40-year-old boat, the newest thing attached to it might be the least important thing you're buying. A new four-stroke looks great in a listing photo. Hanging it on a questionable transom above an aging fuel system doesn't make the engine the story. The structure is still the story. Once owners commit to doing it properly, they go all the way. New transom, new fuel tank, bracket, modern power, new steering, new rigging, modern electronics, updated deck details. But remember what they were actually chasing before any of those parts went on. The old hull. Later Makos fixed real weaknesses without fully replicating the particular feel some owners loved about the original. The SeaCraft 23 pushes that same idea even further. Picture a 23-foot boat with the deck gone, the engine gone, the fuel tank pulled, the transom cut apart, stringers exposed to open air. At some point, you have to ask, what exactly is being restored here? With a Potter-built SeaCraft 23, the answer is usually the shape underneath everything that just got removed. The Potter-era boats are closely tied to the variable dead-rise running surface that built SeaCraft's reputation with serious fishermen. Different areas of the bottom are doing different jobs. Sharper sections handle chop. Flatter outer sections add lift and stability. Ask owners why these old SeaCrafts are still worth rebuilding. And the conversation keeps coming back to that one thing, the hull. Not because everything else was perfect. It wasn't. Old structural material becomes a real problem on these boats. Transoms get wet. Decks soften. Stringers and supporting structure can demand serious, expensive work. A neglected SeaCraft can burn through an enormous amount of time and money before it ever touches water again, which is exactly why it proves the point. Nobody does a hull-up rebuild out of sentimental attachment to 40-year-old wiring. Nobody's carefully preserving an old fuel tank for historical accuracy. And I've yet to meet anyone fighting to save rotten plywood. Those parts can go. New fuel system, new deck structure, new rigging, modern electronics, modern power. Modern composites replacing whatever soft material was holding the boat together. After a serious rebuild like that, calling the finished product old is almost misleading. The geometry is old. Nothing else has to be. That doesn't mean every SeaCraft is perfect in every condition. A hull that earns praise running through chop doesn't automatically become the best boat sitting beam to at anchor. Every hull is a compromise. And modern repowers require real thought too. Today's outboards can weigh considerably more than what these boats were designed around. So transom strength matters. Stern freeboard matters. Balance matters. All of that needs to be considered before anyone reaches for the biggest horsepower number they can afford. Underneath every one of those decisions sits the same fact. Somebody looked at what was practically a bare fiberglass shell and decided the project was still worth finishing, not for what was left inside the boat, for the shape underneath it. If SeaCraft is the clearest example of owners saving just the running surface, number one is what happens when that same philosophy grows into an entire restoration ecosystem. Number 1. Bertram 31. Look at a beautifully rebuilt Bertram 31 and ask yourself a simple question. How much of what you're looking at is actually 60 years old? The engines might be modern diesels, the electronics can be current, the wiring can be new. The fuel systems can be replaced. Shafts, props, transmissions, plumbing, steering, interior equipment, hardware, all of it can have been swapped out. And yet nobody looks at the finished boat and says it stopped being a Bertram, because the part people actually care about survived. The Bertram 31's reputation starts with Ray Hunt's Deep V work. Rough water racing helped prove the concept before the production boat became an offshore fishing icon. That history matters, but it matters because the design kept justifying itself long after the trophies got put away. That steep, deep V carried aft, the cockpit arrangement, and the low machinery placement gave owners something they kept coming back to, decade after decade. And in the process, they built up something more valuable than nostalgia: knowledge. An obscure 60-year-old boat can be brutal to restore because every problem feels like you're solving it for the first time. The Bertram 31 doesn't have that problem. It has an ecosystem. Owners have documented engine conversions, fuel systems, shafts, props, transmissions, airflow, structural work. Nearly every major decision you could face on one of these hulls. That doesn't make the restoration cheap. It makes the problems understood. And that's a real difference. Take a diesel conversion. It sounds simple. Pull the gas engines. Drop in diesels. It isn't. Now you're looking at transmissions, gear ratios, shaft size, struts, props, cooling, airflow, fuel, weight, engine room access. Change one thing, and you can change 3 systems around it. These boats don't get better simply because they're old. They get better because time reveals which parts were worth keeping. So if you're shopping for one, don't buy an old boat just because the name on the side carries a reputation. Figure out which part of that boat actually earned it. If you want more of the stuff experienced owners learn the expensive way, subscribe to BoatVerdict.